Hello, people. Finished a book, Bloody Falls of the Coppermine. It's the Coppermine because this is the name that Europeans gave the Eskimo that live in this area. This story takes place on the far north of Canada, and they call it the Bloody Falls because there was a massacre there. The Indians that lived further south than the Eskimos were always feuding, and the Indians at one time caught a bunch of Eskimo there napping, literally, and killed a whole bunch of them. So the story is about, and I just bought this yesterday. It's 239 pages, and I finished it. It's still early today, and I finished it in less than two days. It was well written and an interesting story. The story is about some fucking missionaries that go up there, and the missionaries are not well suited. They can't take care of themselves. The one guy is all right. He actually gets along with the Eskimo really well. They like him. And but then they send another one who the Eskimo don't care for. Actually, anybody who met this other guy, LaRue, they both had like French names. Anybody that met this other guy, LaRue, did not like him. He was not well suited to this, and the missionaries kind of get left by the trappers and the guys that were guiding them around, the other white people that were able to take care of themselves in the far north. They kind of get left there, and they're staying with the Eskimo, and they realize that winter is coming. It's actually a hard year for the Eskimo, so the Eskimo don't have a whole shitload of extra food. When they do have extra food, they have no problem sharing it. So these two missionaries, they decide to hike back. They have a cabin, I don't know, maybe 100 miles, 150 miles. They're going to try and hike to. They weren't going to make it. They were going to starve to death out in the wilderness. But they had a cabin on Great Bear Lake. It was a good book. I really liked it. It was published in 2005. And I say 239 pages, but a couple of the last pages were acknowledgments. And sometimes I'll read a little bit of the acknowledgments, but as a rule, I don't read the acknowledgments. These Coppermine Eskimo, they first met Europeans in 1910. So that's I'll give you an idea about how remote they were. And then I have missionaries written here, ... And the first thing I'm going to read just comes out of the introduction, if I can find it here. Page 12. Last two paragraphs. In fact, Eskimo country did not, on its face, seem to offer promising soil in which to plant the seeds of Christianity. For one thing, the landscape itself offered few parallels to the places where the religion had been born. There were no gardens, no vineyards, no deserts with which to illuminate biblical parables. There were no sheep or shepherds. There was no daily bread. There was no easy way to describe a crucifixion because there were no trees. There was no notion of God. Early translators of the Lord's Prayer had settled on our boat owner who lives in heaven. Where Eskimos had encountered Europeans, mostly to the west, near whaling ports and the mouth of the Mackenzie River, they thought the strangers a bit odd. Among other things, white trappers, missionaries, and police officers seemed to insist on traveling without the skills and companionship of women. Europeans arrived with useful tools, it was true, but most were unable to clothe, feed, or protect themselves. Many of them died of starvation or exposure. Then I go to page 52. I think this is one of the books that I enjoyed so much that I did not stop to make notes. And I don't have to turn the lights on in here, so I'm having a hard time finding it. These missionaries, when they decide to head south for their cabin, they don't make it. There had been a bit of an argument before they left with a couple of the Eskimo men, and maybe a day after the missionaries leave, two of these Eskimos take off, and we really don't know the truth of what happened, but the two Eskimos said that they were going to meet another group of Eskimos that were traveling north. They may have just gone to murder the priests. Anyways, that's what happens. The Eskimos claim that the priests held them at gunpoint and made them pull their sled. And it doesn't seem to be in the one guy's nature to have done that, but LaRue may have done that. So the Eskimos claim they were feared for their lives, and they end up killing the two priests. They even cut them open and pull their livers out and eat a little bit of the liver. And it's just a taboo that they had to do that, or they would be haunted by the shade of these two priests. The Canadian Mounties run them down. They run them to ground, and they arrest these two Eskimo. They take them all the way back to Edmonton. There's a court case. Of course, the Eskimo they can't understand English. They have to have interpreters for everything. They have no idea what the fuck's going on. And they get acquitted in the first court case, even though they freely admit to killing these guys. The judge doesn't like the fact that they're acquitted. They have a change of venue, and the new court case they get found guilty. At this time, everybody who's guilty of murder gets the death penalty, but they don't give it to the Eskimo. They actually only serve a couple of years, and then they take them back. And one of the guys actually gets murdered, and the other one dies of tuberculosis. The Eskimo there, you know, like all indigenous tribes, when they meet up with the white man, they get fucking diseases, they get alcoholism. You know, it's not a good story. Page 52, second paragraph. Among the things that most perplexed white explorers of the Arctic was how these northern people managed to survive on a diet consisting almost entirely of animal fat and protein. How could they live without the vitamins found in vegetables? History was rife with stories of British sailors dying of scurvy simply because they had failed to pack any fruits rich in vitamin C. Anybody that watches my videos know how fascinated I am with scurvy, and why the fuck did it take them so long to figure it out. And scurvy, for the British especially, was just an example of Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong did. They figured it out that limes would protect you from scurvy. And then they started buying limes from another area of the world, like from the Philippines. Unbeknownst to them, the limes in the Philippines didn't have the same amount of vitamin C. So all of a sudden the limes didn't work. And they were like, well, what the fuck? So that's one of the reasons why it took so long. They figured it out. They went on the cheap with the Filipino limes. Virtually nothing edible grew where the Eskimo lived. The only vegetable matter that ever entered their diet, in fact, was the partially digested moss they gleaned from inside the stomach or entrails of a caribou. In summertime, people would eat as much of this as they could. In colder months, they relied on the vitamins from seal blubber, or would slice up caribou stomachs that had been allowed to freeze with the herbs still inside. Though the Eskimos preferred to boil their meat when they could find fuel, they frequently ate it raw or dried it in the sun. And seal meat, especially when you eat it undercooked, it's full of vitamin C. That's really it. I have one more note. Hornby, it's a name. And Hornby was one of the guys that guided them originally to Great Bear Lake. And I thought I recognized that name because I have a book inside the house titled Cold Burial. And Hornby is a little bit eccentric in this book. He doesn't figure a whole lot in this book. But Hornby in the other book goes to a place where they think that they can store up enough caribou meat to make it through the winter. Him and two other guys. And all three of them starve to death. And Hornby had the weird habit of, if he did get a caribou, he would like eat the thing as quick as he could. He was a little bit crazy. He's kind of a real little guy. He was like 5'2" or something. A character. That's it. Thanks for watching.